confusing. And Lauren said the one on the left seems to come more from the actual SOL instead of being rewarded. That is an excellent point, Lauren. And we're definitely going to be talking about that. You guys are just totally amazing. Thank you. All right. So what is the science behind teacher clarity? Well, the science comes from John Hattie, as some of you may know, in Visible Learning. He did a study both in 2009 was his initial study, and then in 2011, he has done close to about 1,200 meta-analysis. And from these meta-analysis, he found he's up to 195 indicators of what are the factors that really help produce positive student outcomes, and then those that are negative outcomes. Well, just to let you know, for those, for instance, that have a very positive outcome, one of the highest is teacher clarity. It gives you a positive student outcome of 0.75. And according to Larry Ainsworth, that is about 0.4 is the hinge point, about 1 year of learning. That's about 2 years of learning, 2 years of acceleration of growth that your student is going to receive by having teacher clarity of the learning intention. So these are some other effect sizes that Hattie also talks about in his book as well too. The learning intention for a success criteria has an effect size of 1.13. So that alone, clarity when it comes to the learning intention, and then when it comes to the success criteria, is something that is extremely powerful for student conceptual understanding and learning. So just like you guys said, it's really, really important to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then how you know that you will have achieved it, and what those success criteria look like. And the clarity of it being as clear as you can and making sure that there's the alignment is so important for students. And someone also talked about the importance of not doing it in more of an SOL language, but more kid-friendly language. Now, clarity, according to both Hattie, this is the research, Dr. John Almroad, and Ainsworth, makes all the effects possible. And this is absolutely true. They've studied it. Because if students don't know what they're learning, why they're learning, and how do they know that they've achieved it, it's very difficult for us as teachers to give them proper feedback. It's very difficult for us as teachers to know what type of assessments to assign and what type of learning, what type of task to provide for them. It's very hard for students to have that self-efficacy or ownership in knowing that they have succeeded. And then with the assessment capable learners, it's almost as though what Cheryl had talked about, this roadmap. It's really, really hard for students to know, okay, I've gotten this, but what else do I need to know more? What is it that I need in order to get to this point? So teacher clarity, both in learning intentions and in success criteria, are key when it comes to teaching and learning. So in this activity that we're going to be doing next, we're going to choose some goals. And so we're going to model this right now for you. And then later on, we're going to put you in breakout rooms of no more than 4 people. And you're going to work on this about creating your learning intention success criteria and also your task. So this has always been a goal of mine because I'm continuing to want to be healthy. So I want to lose weight. That's the goal. I also want to learn how to eat healthy. And I want to learn how to exercise correctly. So the learning intention is the noun. It is basically, I had to start this way. I am learning how to, or I'm learning about blank so that, and it hints as to the why. So here's an example of taking these goals into a learning intention. I'm learning about the role of diet and exercise so that I can achieve a healthy lifestyle. I've decided I want to revise this a little bit more so that it's a little bit more clear for my students. I'm learning about the role of diet and exercise in achieving a healthy lifestyle. So then what are only then, now that I've identified the what of what I want to do today, then I'm going to plan backwards and I'm going to talk about how will my students learn it and know it when they've learned it. So now I'm going to go to the success criteria and I'm going to make them student friendly. And they're going to be, I will know that I'm achieving the what, the learning intention, when I've been successful. So when I can, blah, 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 identify the foods that provide high nutritional value, when I can explain portion sizes and how it relates to the food I eat, when I can compare and contrast different types of food, when I can incorporate healthy foods in my meal, when I can compare and contrast aerobic and anaerobic exercise, when I can incorporate healthy exercise in my daily routine, and when I can maintain a routine that incorporates a healthy diet and exercise. Now, we've taken the liberty to highlight a lot of these verbs. Why do you think we highlighted these verbs? What do you think that these verbs are going to allow us to do? Take a few moments, think about this, and put it in your chat room of why do you think the verbs kind of change and why we've highlighted these verbs in the success criteria. What is it going to allow us to do? Take a few moments and please put it in the chat room what you think. Oh, yes. Denise, you hit it. Bloom's taxonomy. Showing the alignment. Yes. Higher thinking verbs. Measure the outcomes. Excellent. You guys clearly understand that it involves what Dr. Almore had talked about yesterday between surface learning and deep learning, that as soon as you ask students to start explaining, comparing, and contrasting, you're going into the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Excellent. So with Christine, you're going knowing the actions are working to increase the deeper learning. Excellent, guys. Excellent. You guys should all have a round of applause. Excellent. Way to go. All right. You also talked about it that if you noticed, we did not start with the task. We didn't start with the task. We started with the what. And then the what and the why. And then we talked about what does success look like. And only then did we put in the task, because this allows us to align to what type of task we need to identify in order for students to prove their success criteria. So some examples of tasks are research foods and best times to eat foods, develop a food log, research exercise and how much the body burns during an hour of exercise, determine the caloric intake, and identify the amount of food needed for me to maintain a healthy body weight, create an exercise regimen to follow each day. All right, at this point in time, we're going to do an activity together. And so what's going to happen? How was that? I'm just curious.
Fun.
What?
Great.
It was fun.
Was it fun?
Yes.
Was it hard?
Yes.
Good, but it's getting your brain flowing and your juices moving, okay? So is there a group? I still have this pulled up, as you guys can see. Is there a group out there that's brave enough, who is the facilitator, that wants to share with us what they came up with?
Go
I
on,
know.
Heather.
Did I hear someone?
Okay, we might actually have someone. We're a big group here from Appomattox County, and
Okay.
we might have, come on. You want, come on. Hold on, I will, I'll turn our camera on here. I'm volunteering we're a group of, we have a cohort of our first, second, and third year teachers here in the room. So,
Hi.
you have to come get, are you seriously?
Oh,
You don't, okay, she says she'll talk if I'll turn the camera off, so.
Okay, that's totally fine.
I'm gonna honor that for her. I'm gonna honor
Okay.
that for her, but she is going to come and at least be close enough to that. So, okay, she's gonna represent her group here.
Amy, what group are you in so I can make sure that we see it?
We are slide, it's group 19.
But we
All right,
didn't
hot
do it-
diggity dog, thank you.
Yeah, we didn't do it on the slides that we did it on.
They didn't
paper.
type it, they just did it on paper because we broke them up in 2 groups and so they did them individually. So they didn't actually type it on the slide. So.
But
you
it's
guys just have-
okay.
It's okay. All right. So just talk away. Go ahead.
Talk away and Amy, I want to ask you, do you want me to type in so that everyone has it, what you said? I'd be happy to do that. I'll be happy to be your
Sure.
scribe.
Sure, go ahead. We had 2 groups working in the room here, so we just kind of facilitated in the room, and that's kind of how we're doing this. So,
All right,
yeah,
thank you.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Our goal was to buy a house. Our why was a place to live since we can't live in our classrooms. I am learning about responsibility so that I can be a good homeowner would be
Okay, so I can't write as fast, so I'm learning. So can you say it again, please?
about responsibility
Okay,
so that I can be a good homeowner.
okay,
So under our success criteria, we will compare and contrast being a homeowner versus a renter.
so I can compare and contrast, go ahead.
Being a homeowner versus a renter.
Oh, that's awesome. You're
And
gonna
under-
watch that Dr. Chen does not know how to spell. I can compare and contrast. Say it again, I'm sorry.
Being a homeowner versus a renter.
Okay,
So we understand the responsibilities of being a homeowner.
excellent.
Again, going back into that. And then we said today I will meet with a financial advisor to become more knowledgeable in my finances in the home buying process. Sorry, I
Oh.
forgot your typing.
No, it's okay. So that's the what. So what is the success criteria? So can you say that again, please?
Today I will meet with a financial advisor
So I can meet with a financial advisor.
to become more knowledgeable
Okay,
in my finances during the home buying process.
I'm trying my best, guys. You're watching me.
You
Try-
got it.
Okay, I'm trying. I know there's a lot of mistakes here. You're watching Dr. Chen cannot spell. Thank you, Jesus, for spell check. All right, go ahead.
After obtaining the information about my finances,
So are we still in the success criteria, ma'am?
so I'm gonna copy and paste that into the tasks aligned with meeting the task
Okay.
criteria. Sorry, I don't wanna. And then, right, didn't we say that the after meeting? So
Okay.
in that column, we would also put, after obtaining information about my finances, we will meet with the realtor and put in an offer.
Okay. So you're gonna have some sort of activity in which they're gonna meet with a realtor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Understanding and then putting in an offer.
okay. Wow, they're gonna go through a real live process. This is pretty cool.
And then we will have learned it / reached it when our offer is accepted and we bought and own a house. So that will be how will we learn? That is the success criteria.
That's right. So go ahead and say that again, please. That's an
The
excellent
success-
success criteria. Go ahead.
We will have learned it / reached it when our offer is accepted and we bought and own a house.
So I can make a reasonable offer that is accepted. And I can buy a house. Does that sound okay? Is that what you want?
Sure.
No. I'm just your typist. You tell me what you want me to do. Does that represent what you guys want?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Mario, you had your hand raised?
No, I was gonna share for our group, but if you're not done, please continue.
Oh, Mario, you're so wonderful. No, I just wanted to make sure that I'm recognizing. So Appomattox, Mario, go for it. Which one are you?
All right, awesome. We were group 2, and we chose to talk about how
Thank
to
you for
learn an
stepping outside your
instrument.
comfort zone. That was huge. That was huge.
Whoever you are, and I don't know your name, thank you for stepping out of your comfort zone. Like Amy said, you guys
Yeah.
rock.
Awesome. So
All
we're
right,
group
Mario.
2. We're group 2, and we decided to talk about how to learn an instrument. I was with Josh, Kimberly, and Lydia. And for our learning intentions, we said I'm learning about how to play the violin so that I can enhance my studies of classical music. And for our success criteria, I will know that I have learned how to play the violin by reaching intermediate level. So this is level 2. So in the first level, all the teacher does is basically teach you how to hold the violin, the bow, and how to play each string, and how to move your fingers and all of that.
Mario, it sounds like you know how to play the violin.
I played the violin for 7 years.
Okay, and it
So,
sounds like later on in our break, you're going to give us a concert. Is that what?
unfortunately not, because I have stopped playing since 2014.
Okay.
So I equalized it there.
Okay.
Yeah. I will also be able to fully understand and read sheet music. So again,
Excellent.
you'll be able to do that. I will be able to successfully tune the violin, and our highest level of like Bloom's taxonomy will be able to create your own song. So that's how you know you are successfully able to play the violin. We said for what tasks are aligned, we're going to say practice reading the scales and notes, as well as playing the violin, which is creating a daily routine for that. I know I used to play 2 hours or practice 2 hours a day when I was in string orchestra. And then becoming musically literate. Sometimes when the director is up there, they will say like pianissimo or whatever other terms they are. I forgot them all. You need to understand what those terms mean and mark them on your sheet. So there is literacy in string orchestra as well.
So the task might be, if we're going to turn that into a task, to maybe to identify when
Mhm.
listening to a piece of music. Is that those terms?
Yes, we can say that.
No, that's excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Way to go, Mario's group. Round of applause.
Thank you.
Is there any group else that would like to share?
Well, we had something like that once. I don't know if you want to hear the same
Yes,
thing.
I want to hear your voice, Denise. You are awesome. So which group are you, ma'am?
We were group 1, so we were kind of in the same area as Mr. Mario. What is your goal? And we put for our learning intention, I am learning about how to play. Oh, we forgot. We didn't mean violin. We're supposed to have we messed up. Oh yeah, there we are. The piano as a way to care for myself.
All right, now I just want to make sure, because I'd received some feedback that my screen isn't shared. You guys can see this, right?
Group 1.
Yeah,
You
group
guys
1.
You guys can see what group 1's doing. No?
No.
Oh.
I can.
I look behind my screen and I can't.
Do you want me to share my screen?
No, it's all right. Bailey, can you help us with this?
Yep, hold on. I'll pull it up and I'll share my screen.
Thank you.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you guys so much. All right, go ahead, Denise, and I apologize for that. Go ahead, Denise.
Sorry, because we thought we had to combine the 2 goals. So we used both of them, and we put in there for our learning intention. I am learning about how to play the piano as a way to care for myself.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Our success criteria was I can identify notes and their keys. I can use sheet music to read and play musical notes. I can prioritize time for playing the piano when I need to relax.
That's excellent.
I can evaluate my stress relaxation levels with daily check-ins. I can write a song and I can collaborate with other musicians.
So you and Mario are going to start a band, right?
Yes.
You on the piano and he on the violin. You're going to take it on the road, right?
We're going orchestra all the way.
It's going to be called Omarode's Orchestra, right?
Exactly.
We just need someone from choir, and that will be great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So what are your tasks? This is
Um,
excellent, guys.
So we have music practice and relaxation reflection log to track self-care and practice time. We'll participate in an online music reading game like Staff Wars and Whack a Note. Create and produce a song, perform a concert, play a duo. Uh-oh, somebody changed my thing.
I didn't touch it. I didn't touch it. I
Sorry.
didn't touch it.
Produce a musical video and create a calendar of stress check-ins. So,
Oh, that's excellent. That is excellent, guys. Really, really proud of you guys. Gosh, I want to join so many groups. I want to go to Appomattox now to learn how to buy like a home. I want to go to Denise and learn how to play the piano and relax. And I want to hang out with Mario and learn how to do the violin. You guys are amazing, very specific. So what I'd like for you guys to do right now, and thank you so much for that, and thank you for sharing. And on Thursday, we're going to be using again these tasks that we've designed, and we're going to talk about a little bit more about what it means to have meaningful tasks. So you'll see a reiteration of these tasks again. They're going to come back to us on Thursday. All right, so at this point in time, what I'd like for you guys to do is write in the chat, what did you learn about this process? Take a few moments, put in the chat, what did you learn about this process? Excellent. This can be applied to my goal. Collaboration key. It works better with a team. You isolate the verbs. Excellent. Have to turn a goal into the steps, and then later on the steps and activities. Wow, Angelique, make sure tasks and criteria align together. Being specific is important. Sometimes it isn't easy to create specific outcomes on your own, but working with others on the same goal is better, easier, be specific and measurable. God, this is a sharp group. Cause you to thoughtfully process the learning goal and analyze task. Deeper learning is an action. Wow. I've learned to ensure I'm incorporating multiple levels of blooms when creating success criteria. You guys, what an excellent job. I need you guys all to give yourselves a round of applause. Get it? Round of applause. You get it? This is definitely middle school humor, right? It goes around and around. My students used to do this to me all the time. All right, I'm going to try to share my screen again so that I can make sure that we go on to the next activity. All right. Now that we've done this, what I'd like for us to talk about is how does this apply to what we're going to be doing in the classroom? We thought about like, how could we get you guys involved in the activity? Now, what does this look like? And Cheryl and I'm going to do reading and Cheryl's going to do math. But what we talked about, and we decided to choose a middle school, in the middle school, only because we know we've got amazing elementary teachers, middle school teachers, and high school teachers, but we wanted to be equitable and go somewhere in the middle. And so we're taking a look at the standard. This is applying SOL 6.5 reading. And when you take a look at this standard, it is a juicy standard. There's a lot in the standard for students to be able to know and to do. But one thing that I've learned as a teacher is that standards and curriculum frameworks are not written for the students. They're written for us as teachers. And that's a huge takeaway. These standards are written for teachers. So our job to ensure that students know what they're learning, why they're learning, and then how they know it when they get it, is to unpack the standard in such a way that we have very clear learning intentions, very clear success criteria, and that we make sure that there's alignment with our task. And only then we do our task last. We do our task so that we can ensure that there's alignment between what we're asking our students to show us and to demonstrate. So when you take a look at this, I'm thinking, wow, this standard 6.5, there's so much in it. There's like genres within the standard itself, at least two different genres. So we took a look at this together and we say, wow, there's setting, character, plot, conflict, theme, cause and effect. So there's different ways to go about teaching this. And so one of the things that Cheryl and I talked about, and also Dr. Almaro, and you guys picked it up, you guys had a great aha moment that it's good to work in your professional learning communities when it comes to unpacking these standards so that you can have conversations and so that you'll have consistency. We talked about probably the biggest one was that we looked about that because it started in second grade was studying the characteristics of a variety of genre. And we wanted to connect to see with students what prior knowledge they had about the different types of genres. So we chose that one kind of like as our big umbrella as a starting place. Although you could choose point of view, you could choose word choice and imagery, you could choose any of these, but we specifically focused on this one because we thought it's really important for kids to know about the characteristics of a variety of genres before we start comparing, contrasting all these other narrative structures. So that was our thinking behind it. So we started with 6.5G. And again, 6.5G is written for teacher. It is not written for student. So when we take a look at this, what is the goal? What is your desire? Today, we want our students to identify the characteristics of a variety of genres. Now, you could spend a couple of days doing this, but this is where we wanted to start off as a starting point. So what is the what? What is the noun? What is that you want students to grab today? All right, we wrote this in simple terms. I'm learning that there are different genres, and they have known that from second, third, fourth, fifth grade, and now to sixth grade. I'm learning that different genres have different characteristics. So how could we put these two together in a sentence? Revise it. I'm learning about the various characteristics of different genres. Why? So that ultimately I can be a better reader, and have a greater understanding of what I'm learning. So that's where that is the what and the why. Those three things that we continue to talk about, those three little apples. The representation, this is why they were in little apples, the symbols, coming back to the science of learning, three little pairs sitting on a nice little cross section. Now, how will I know that I've learned it? So what are some success criteria that as a child, I know that I know all these characteristics? Well, I can identify the different genres. I can explain why I identify a piece of text as a certain genre. I can identify the common characteristics that all genres share. I can explain how the structure and characteristics change depending on the type of genre I'm reading. So before I show you another task, I'd like for you guys to think about it and just throw what your thoughts might be out there. What are some tasks that you guys might come up with or think about that align to these success criteria? Just let's go ahead and try it. What are some activities that students could do? We talked about having them read two experts from different texts of different genres to do a little compare and contrast. But what are some other things that you think that students could do to meet these success criteria? You wouldn't mind, take a couple of moments, think about this, and please put it in the chat room. And Heather, can you read as to what you're seeing, please, in the chat room? Can you read what you're seeing from some of our teachers?
Absolutely. They're sharing that they could create their own piece, anchor charts to write down the characteristics of each genre, sort a section in the class library. That's a good one.
Love that. Love that.
Have them highlight specific portions of sentence structure in the text.
Woo!
Discuss in small groups specific genres.
All right. That's excellent. Go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry, Heather.
Complete a sort and write their own piece. Have them identify the genre and have them identify the genre of their classmates' essays and pieces.
Oh, I love that. Putting the ownership back on the students and then having the students discuss alike. I love that. That's student choice and student voice. Wow.
Genre book shopping using Scholastic Magazine.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Partner and write 2 different genre pieces. Identify the genres they are personally reading.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. Okay, so excellent. A lot of these are very similar to what we talked about. Ask students to compare and contrast the characteristics between the 2 texts. Record the examples on a piece of paper and ask the students to reference the text. Discuss as a class what characteristics they found in the various genres. Discuss the similarities and differences of the various genres and describe how you approach the text based on the genre. You guys did an excellent job. And I do need to say something, and I want to thank you guys for your patience. Where I'm situated, sometimes the internet goes in and out, and it's raining today, so I'm having some trouble with my internet. So I really, really, honest to goodness, appreciate your patience with me. And thank you, Heather, and thank you, Bailey, and thank you, Cheryl, for jumping in, because it's been going in and out. And thank you to the rest of you guys for your patience. All right, now we're going to jump over, and Cheryl's going to be taking this piece about looking at the math. Cheryl?
Hi, everyone. Again, I just wanted to say thanks to all the work that you did when you were in the small groups. I heard a lot of great conversation and had a great conversation with those in my group. So thanks again for all the feedback that you've given and all the points that you've brought up. We appreciate your participation. So looking at some, we looked at reading, we're going to look at math. And I just want to, remind you that and what Dr. Chen said, so true. The standards and the curriculum framework are for us. They are not for the students. So I'm really glad some of you pointed out at the beginning examples of learning intentions and success criteria, that it wasn't student-friendly language per se. So you want to make sure you keep that in mind when you are writing your learning intentions and success criteria. And you also want to keep in mind that the standards of learning are too broad for one single lesson. I could not teach all of this. You certainly couldn't teach the one Dr. Chen just showed in one lesson. So you want to start with your standards and then identify your content and your skills, create learning progressions within your PLCs, and that's a great time to collaborate and talk it through. What are our goals going to be? What are our learning intentions, success criteria? How can we reach those with specific tasks? So that PLC work is so vital to this entire process. So I pulled out this math SOL. It's from 7th grade. You can see it's got several bullets here. I pulled out the compare and order rational numbers one. Students have worked with rational numbers from elementary school on up. So it is something they're familiar with. Dr. Chen, you can go on to the next slide, please.
Thank you.
So again, we want to always start with our learning intentions and success criteria. I know Dr. Chen mentioned this earlier, and I've been guilty of it for myself as an educator. We find some, awesome activity on paid teachers, or we've gone to a conference
Amen.
and we've seen something.
Amen.
And we just want to, use that. And we're more focused on the activity than the learning that we're going to get from it. So we want to be very careful about that. So again, always start with your learning intention and success criteria. Don't focus on your task first. So our goal, we want students to compare and order rational numbers. So our learning intention, the first thing we're going to want to do is, what are rational numbers? Students need to know what that is. Then we're going to talk about, well, let's compare them. And then we're going to talk about how to order them. And then, so a revision of a learning intention could be, I'm learning what rational numbers are so I can compare and order them in various forms. So how will students know they have learned it? So you can, this is, some of you mentioned going back to your standards here, looking at those verbs, and that framework is vital. You've got to do that to make sure that you are teaching students to the level that they need to be taught that particular standard. So we want to make sure we can identify what rational numbers are. We want to be able to convert them from one form to another. We want to be able to compare our rational numbers. And then, so looking in the framework for 7.1, I'm going to see specifically it states order rational numbers either in ascending or descending order. So there's that vocabulary that some of you mentioned from your activity, how critical that's also to include. So you want to now start thinking about your task. And as you're thinking about your task, you want to make sure that you're considering the rigor of your task. And you guys did a beautiful job of talking about Bloom's taxonomy and including lots of different activities or tasks that students could complete that allow them to collaborate. What we're looking for here is that gradual release of responsibility to the students. So, are you having some teacher modeling first? Are you scaffolding your instruction? Are you giving them time to collaborate? Are you also giving them time for some independent learning? So you want to consider all of those things when you're looking at which task that you're choosing. So for this particular one, I put down categorizing numbers. That's how we can kind of start with that identifying rational numbers. So if we gave them a set of numbers, we asked them to start categorizing them and then start putting some labels on them, giving examples and non-examples. So that bumps it up.
Now, I want to say that also, this is a wonderful task that will allow you, when you're watching the kids and you put them in small groups, this is a wonderful way for you to also sit back and to take some teacher feedback, to get some feedback, because you'll hear the conversations of what students are saying. And then you'll begin to say, wow, do they really know, by providing the examples, the definition of rational numbers and irrational numbers? And that might mean something you might have to take a step back and reteach. But this is an excellent task to begin with. Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome. Another task, fraction, decimal, and percent conversion. So going from one form to another, making sure that they can do that, and that would help them compare and order. So you can kind of see how I've listed these tasks almost in my mind. I was listing them how I would probably teach them, so that gradual release of responsibility is taking place. Once I've done these two things, I would go on, they could play a war game with rational number cards. So every student would be given cards, they flip them over, we compare and play war with them. And then finally, an independent type activity could be giving them a set of rational number cards and they have to place them in ascending or descending order. So just with this, the whole point of teacher clarity is just, you want to make sure that your learning is organized and intentional. And I saw some of you place that word intentional in the chat, and I'm so happy to see that. We don't want to just haphazardly pick things, activities, tasks that we think look good or would be fun. We want them to have a purpose, and we want them to meet our success criteria. So when your learning is organized and intentional, when your students know what they are doing, why they are doing it, and how they will know that they have achieved that learning goal, great things can happen in your classroom. But if we aren't specific about that, if we don't make that learning visible, our students aren't going to be as successful as they can be.
Thank you, Cheryl, for that wonderful example. And so next, Cheryl touched upon this, and yesterday you had a great conversation with Dr. John about equity, authenticity, and relevance, but mostly about equity. And equity isn't about making everything equal. It's meeting the child where they are at that point in time and place. And on Thursday, we're going to start talking a little bit more about our task. And Antonetti and Carver did a lot of research on this, and they came up with the characteristics, for instance, that really talk about, in essence, and we'll go a little bit deeper, of what makes a task very meaningful. But Cheryl touched upon this, that you have to start when you unpack a standard that's written for teachers with the what. And then the why. The why is important because that's where the science of learning comes in. If you just memorize, like on the Andy Griffin show, when you were watching that video yesterday, when he was trying to recite, I think, the Constitution, it's very short term. It doesn't have emotion. It doesn't have meaning. It doesn't have value. So the why is very important. How does it make relevance? How does it relate to the child and what they're doing? And then knowing where you're going to be very successful, being able to point that out. How do you know that you've achieved that success? So being very, very clear already with teacher clarity, that's 0.75. Teacher clarity and success criteria, that's 1.13. Both of those combined together, woo, you're a hot tamale. That's about 2 years worth of learning. And especially when we're coming back with COVID, from COVID, we're getting our children ready, acclimated back. So the other thing is that now that you've done that and you figured out the task, and remembering the task is not the first thing, but the task is more so the latter piece after you have figured out the what, the why, and how you will know. These are some characteristics that we've found in many lesson plans that we've taken a look at in different divisions. Now, your division, your people in your division are going to tell you about how they want their lesson plans set up. But these are the takeaways that we want you to have when you're thinking about your lessons. And I heard it from you guys also in the chat room. Thinking about what are the reading levels of your students to ensure that equity. Are they all reading on the same grade level? Who are your students? And Heather's going to talk a little bit more about that and knowing in that relationship. How you connect what students previously learned to this new learning, the prior knowledge. That's why we talked about, for instance, starting off with the characteristics of different genres, because they've studied that since second grade. Cheryl talked about starting where she started and ordering them in a progression, her task, so that continues to connect to prior knowledge. And you all talked about this, the vocabulary needed to teach the lesson. And this is where your PLCs come into your professional learning communities, when you're meeting up with people, having the same common language so that what you're saying in one class, if it's the topic at hand, it doesn't have another name in another class, so it doesn't confuse students. But using that common language is so important, especially going vertically with your kids and also going horizontal. What are the materials that you need to set up the lesson? How do you make sure that this lesson is set up? And Heather's going to go into that in part 2. What will you practice with your students and how long will you practice with them? Cheryl talked about that in the lesson, and for you to think about that in the lesson, that's that gradual release model in which you're modeling, and then you'll let your students go ahead and do it on their own. And then you choose an activity or other activities that are aligned to your success criteria that you allow your students to do, that you want your students to do on their own. And then if you decide to do whole group, small group instruction, how do you know what placement of groups to put your children in, things to think about? And how will you continue to connect with students, what they've learned once they have exited outside your classroom? For instance, are you thinking about working on a common theme? For instance, with another teacher, could this somehow show up? You're doing something math, could it somehow show up in English? Those concepts that you're learning. What are some salient points also in your closure that you want your students to take away at the end of class to demonstrate that they have met those success criteria? So as we begin to think about this, this is really, really important. Some of the things to think about when you're designing a lesson, but you're not going to be able to design that lesson, as Cheryl and Heather have pointed out, and you guys have shared with us, without knowing the what first, with the why, and then the how to reach those success criteria. You don't start off with the task. That's really important to know. You don't start off with a task, and I have been so guilty of it, 100%. I get caught up. I don't know what, it's just easier sometimes to look at the task, but what ends up doing is the students get lost with what they're learning, why they're learning, and knowing if they've reached that goal. So what I'd like for you guys to do at this point in time is for us to kind of pause and reflect. let's think about what is one thing that you've learned today, and why is this important to you as a teacher and to your students? If you could take about 5 minutes to think about this and then to put it in the chat, we would really appreciate it. And then we're going to talk about it some more. Oh, I love that. State objectives are for teachers, not students. Break down my SOL curriculum to make sure that my students are learning what they need to do, but also making sure they know the purpose of learning. Wow. Make sure learning goals are accessible. It's in a clear language. Yes, kid-friendly language. Clearly having the goals for a lesson unit day displayed for students. Yes, it gets them to own it. I think that this allows your students not only to know where we're headed, but holds everyone accountable for learning. Excellent. Oh, I love that. That's a huge takeaway. Objectives are not written for the teachers, they're for the students. We have an amazing group. We got to take this group with us on the road.
I was
mean-
just thinking that same thing.
I'm telling you, all of you need to come to Louisa. That's all we got to say. You know, bust them all to Louisa.
Yeah. Do not start with a task.
Teacher clarity can accelerate learning exponentially. Yes. God. This is amazing. The why and the how. You guys are so amazing.
Intentional. Yes.
Intentional, focused. How to make SOL objectives clear and fun for students. And we're going to talk to you, Jaleesa. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm also curious how this can be implemented with kindergarten. You have a kindergarten expert here, Heather Spade. Maybe you want to answer that question, Heather Spade?
Yeah, it's all about unpacking the standards and collaborating with your team. That's how my team does it at Jewett. But yeah, you can whittle them down and be very intentional about what you're teaching. And I was telling Dr. Chen before this presentation that as a teacher, I always started with the curriculum framework, and I look before to the grade level before and the grade level after, so I kind of know on the continuum where we are. So I think you can break it down for kindergarten, but it will take some unpacking and discussing with your team.
And I love what Andrea Terbox wrote, unpacking standards and using the learning intentions and success criteria and to post them for students to use. Yes, Andrea, then the owning comes back to the students. We talked to the first grade too. That is excellent, kindergarten. That's the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are in a bigger division, and this is what I love, having the time, I think, to work with other schools and the other schools in the division, so you develop that common language, and having the time to do those PLCs. And yes, you can use drawings as well. Smiley faces, non-smiley faces. Excellent. This is excellent. You guys are doing such a wonderful job. So think first. Vertical articulation is critical. Yes, going backwards and forwards. Backwards designs start with the success criteria and then plan the tasks and activities for how they get there. Also explain to students why. Yes, that goes into the science of learning. The science of learning, it gets the students to own it. When their emotions are attached to it, it has meaning. And we're going to talk about that with Dr. John on Thursday and how to create meaningful tasks. This is excellent. You guys are amazing. We've got some, we're going to pack everyone from Automatics, put them in a bus, Amy, and drive them here to Louisa. All right. This is amazing. Amazing. All right. So at this point in time, what I'd like to talk to you guys about, and thank you so much for your participation, because again, I can only tell you that that you should feel very proud of yourselves, because there's lots of things that you could be doing during the summertime, but you're using this summertime to increase your learning. And why you're doing that, so that you can be helpful and successful for your students when they come back from this pandemic. So we're gonna reset our minds. We're gonna come back. I think lunch is from 12 to 1. Is that correct? Ms. Fade, Heather?
Yes, ma'am.
And where we're gonna go next is, we've talked about the really important components about teacher clarity when it comes to being able to talk about an effective learning intention, effective success criteria, what does that compose of? And then knowing how to think about how do you align the task. The next place, now that you know that, and those are the tools that will get you 0.75, 1.13, there's also another piece that's really important. It's the relationship that you hold with students. It's making them, how does teacher clarity look like in that? It goes, what's in the classroom? How do you establish a positive climate so that there's optimal learning? And when we come back, that's what we're going to talk about. What does teacher clarity look like when you're starting to bring it in those first couple of days? What are things that you need to think about? Because we all know, and as teachers, and we all know this also as adults, that you got to feel safe. You got to feel loved. You got to feel that you belong in that classroom to really want to engage in the learning. And so you've got to feel as though safe. And so when we come back, we're going to talk about what teacher clarity looks like. And Heather is going to lead the way when it comes to that, about what that looks like in the classroom and the first couple of days when you start off with kids, and also how to establish that positive climate, and also how to talk about student choice, student voice, so a lot of great things. So what time it is? It is 11:45. We've ended a little bit early. I hope that's okay with you guys. You guys have done a lot of great work. We'll be around here if you want to ask any questions for us, but I think Bailey is the way it goes. If they will pop back in at 1 o'clock and you'll let them back in. Is that how we do this?
Yep, everyone can log back on at 1 and we'll be readmitting everyone in.
Okay. Well, we'll stay around if any of you want to stay around and ask us any questions, or you have any questions that you want to put in the chat. If not, feel free to go ahead and go and start your lunch early. And again, Heather, Cheryl, and I are so grateful just for the time that you spent with us. And we hope that you guys got something fun out of this, that it was engaging, and that you've learned something. Okay, one thing that you learned also is that when you are in Bumpus, Mineral, Virginia, you sometimes will have technical difficulties with, because of the rain and the wind and stuff when it comes to
There's a
internet.
ruckus and bumpus.
It's a ruckus and Bumpus. And so we really appreciate your patience with us as we've gone through these technical difficulties. You guys are amazing. So we'll stay here.
Dr. Chen, I have a quick question. Can we get the notes for this session and other sessions?
Oh, yes, ma'am. And Bailey, how can we make sure that Makisha gets what she needs?
Okay, so we're going to, I think, either by the end of this week or maybe we could send out an email, but we have a drive that has a collection of the presentations, like I've posted Lisa Chen's PowerPoint and everything that we did today in there. Unfortunately, we can't get the presentation from yesterday because our two speakers are writing a book about the presentation they had, and we can't release what their book's going to be about yet until it comes out. But eventually recordings should come out probably by the beginning of August that you guys will be able to view, hopefully on our YouTube channel that we're working to create.
Okay, thank you.
So we should have that out to you soon. But
All right,
Makisha,
thanks.
we will make sure that also, if worst case scenario comes, Bailey has your email. I'm more than happy. We're more than happy to share this presentation because sharing is caring, and we're all in this together, and we all need to help support one another. So whatever we can do, and we truly mean this, you can ask us questions anytime. We want to, because we learn as much from you as you learn from us. I'm continuously learning from you guys. So thank you. And more than happy to share whatever you want and how much you ever want. Okay.
Okay, that
Yep.
sounds good. Thanks.
If you have any questions, you can always email the CTA email account, cta@jmu.edu, and we'll answer any questions you have
That's CTA
at jmu.edu.
jmu.edu. Okay, thank you. That was great.
Thank you. And what we're going to find out, Denise, I know you're staying on.